Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Angela.
And this is NFGeeks. All right. So, Angela, welcome. Welcome back. Angela has been promoted to our new NF co-host. So you'll be seeing lots of Angela doing interviews and being in interviews. So welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Angela. Okay. There was a rigorous test. Hazing rituals.
It was
all
pretty
sorts
intense.
of horrible things. So, today's NF topic is about dreams. So we want to talk about dreams because I know everybody has dreams, but there's something particularly significant to NFs about dreams. I think all sort of the mystical dream interpretations are NFs doing it, and so there's something sort of special about it to NFs about dreams. So what do you think, Angela? What ideas do you have about the relationship between NFs and dreams?
Well, I know just for me, it's very emotionally, like, it goes very forward from my emotions. Like, if I'm feeling sad or if I'm feeling nervous about something, I feel like my dreams will reflect that. And same thing as if I can feel something coming, with the N, it's kind of like the intuitive side of me starts kicking in. And I feel like when I have dreams, it's almost predicting certain issues coming in my life, whether it's good or bad or happy stuff or, money stuff even sometimes. Things that normally I wouldn't even think about the connections until it actually happens. And then it freaks me out.
Can you give, what are some examples of this? Do you have any dreams that have really hit that home for you?
Well, I've had a couple of deja vu moments, feeling like it had already happened before, but I knew that I had had them in a dream a good amount of time before the actual occurrence. To the point where I almost felt like I could predict what was going to happen. You know what I mean? So to give an example, I had a dream, this was probably a couple years ago, but I do remember it because it was significant. I had a dream about having a conversation with my grandmother and, discussing about what I was going to do about school, to the point of the detail where I looked out the window as she said a certain word. And then a couple weeks later, we had the conversation. I started to kind of think, I feel like I've had this conversation before. And then, lo and behold, as she said that exact part of the sentence, I was looking out the window unconsciously, but then consciously said, holy crap, that just happened, and I thought it was going to happen before it did. And it really freaked me out, but it was very interesting to feel that way, and I felt like a connection to that, where I was like, is it like me feeling like I'm seeing the future, or is it that I'm having like recurrences in my mind, but it just feels like I was seeing it beforehand?
Sure. I think this is a very common NF experience that NFs don't like to talk about with others. And believe me, we're going to get a lot of crap just talking about it now.
Yeah.
So, all right, but let's accept that So, first of all, let's accept all of the materialist biological things about dreams are correct. Like, they come from the reptilian part of the brain, and it's, it's just various charges bouncing around the cerebrum, whatever. That's fine. What is actually happening biologically isn't necessarily relevant to the consciousness and to the experience. I mean, it's relevant in the sense that's what's causing it in a biological sense, but doesn't need to be reduced to that. So I'll admit that I have had that exact same experience. I have had all my life. So maybe this is an ENFP thing. I don't know, but I'm sure the other NFs will talk about it. I have had weird dreams all my life where I dreamed something and then it happened. I had a weird sort of event, and I would try to remember back when did I first experience this, and I'd be like, oh my God, that was a dream. And this goes way back with me, like over 30, 40 years I've had this.
Yeah.
Things like, and they're always mundane things. So when I talk about like dreaming about the future, it's not like I dreamed 9/11 or Katrina,
it's like,
or like a president.
Right.
Yeah. It's actually very, very mundane things.
Yeah.
It's never anything historic. It's not like the Dead Zone.
Yeah.
I wish it was, but it's not like that. So, for example, the most recent time this happened was when I went to a private beach. And this is why it was interesting, because it's a beach I never went to before. But I went to a private beach. I don't know. This might have been within the last year with the doctor who they know on NFGeeks. I'm not seeing the doctor anymore, unfortunately. But I was with her, and we were at this private beach, and I'd never been to this private beach ever, because it's a private beach, and I'm poor, so I wouldn't be on a private beach. Yeah. She was not poor. So that's how we were on this private beach. And at one point, there were sandbars on this beach, okay? Yeah. There were various sandbars. And I went to a sandbar, and we were walking around, and I turned around and sort of viewed the horizon and the landscape and some land across the bay or whatever. And I realized I had this incredible deja vu. Like, wait a minute. I had done this before. I absolutely remember this. This wasn't just a weird... Like, I had a memory of, like, how could I have remembered this? I've never been to this beach. And then I rememred, oh, my God, I had a dream about this.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
Right. I had a dream being on a...
See, the connection.
Right. Being a dream on the sandbar and looking at, like, I realized... And I realized, too, that in the dream, it took a long time to walk to get to that point. So we're walking in incredibly shallow... In the dream, I'm walking in shallow water for a long time, and then I get to this point. And the same thing happened in the dream, too. In the real world, too. It was this long walk. And they're probably saying, well, you have to realize the connection is that the dream and the event look exactly the same. Yeah. Like, exactly the same when this happens. It's not like, well, you're on a sandbar and you're on another sandbar and they all look the same.
It's details, exact things.
Where the sun is.
Yeah.
The color of the water.
A bird going by that exact moment while words being said.
There's weird things, and I've been talking about this with my new best friend, INFJ Front Row Seat, who's a fan of NFGeeks.
She's awesome.
Yes. All right, poet. She's our featured
I love it, by the way.
Yes. And she, and we've been talking about this concept of nonlinear experience of time.
Yep.
You know, whatever that means. I actually have a very special episode just on that issue coming up. But having this experience. So, do you have any other similar experiences of this?
Well, to also kind of go on that note, too, is I feel almost a little frustrated by it because... Although I can feel it, I can feel that instance coming on. Like certain triggers, I'll say, I remember this. I can almost predict that sentence, but I can't prevent it. I can't stop it from happening, and I can't change it. It feels like no matter what, that specific thing that I'm remembering always comes back around. Even if I try to change it, it always comes back around. So it's not like, again, like we said, it's not like this crazy thing where I could, like, prevent an accident from happening or something. You know what I mean? It's you're seeing it as it's going to happen, and no matter what you do, it's going to happen that way. And like the same thing, you know, obviously is different in age, but I have had them pretty much my whole life. Even as like a kid, simple things, just how I was going to get on the bus, looking down at my shoes, things like that.
Right, and that's the fascinating thing about them. Again, there's no like, you know, we dreams of the asteroid hitting the Earth. You know, it's never anything.
It's never anything.
It's always
crazy
stupid
like
people eating cereal. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And I never think about this because, you know, it's always so mundane. Is that when I actually have the dream, because once you realize it's a dream, you remember having the dream and waking up from the dream. That's why it's a little more than deja vu. It's something a little weirder. And so when I wake up from these dreams that are mundane, I always think to myself, oh, that dream sucked. You know, all I was doing was, you know, eating a cheeseburger in a car. Like, God, that's not.
It doesn't seem significant until later. You're like, oh my God.
And you would think I would catch after 40 years that this is going to be something happening in a, you know, at some future point. But I don't. I just kind of think, oh, that was boring. You know, that wasn't too interesting. Did you ever have one that was sort of really interesting? Though, did you ever have one that was sort of bordered on something larger? Because I got one kind of.
Well,
and it's goofy.
I have one that's kind of interesting.
Okay.
I had one that was a specific instance happening. I don't remember all of it. It was driving in the car, listening to music, an exact song, and I was looking over to the driver's seat, and it was, you know, a guy. But I never saw the face that whole time. Never saw the face. And probably like years later, I had this dream and I was like, this is never going to mean anything. It wasn't a big deal at all. But then as I got older, I'm like, maybe that dream had significance because it happened a few more times. The same dream happened a few times. That happens to me a lot too. I don't know about other NFs, but I have like a lot of recurring dreams where certain dreams will come up every once in a while. The same exact dream will come up once in a while, a couple days in a row.
We might even need a second episode of this to talk about recurring themes. Because I have a whole bunch of those too. But go ahead, keep going. So
a couple years later, I had an experience driving in the car. And the weird thing was, when I had this dream the first time, it was listening to country music. I never liked country music when I was younger. I liked country music as I got older. And about 6 months ago, I had an experience where I was driving in the car, and the guy that I'm with now was in the driver's seat, but the exact situation, the same shirt, the same shorts, the song that was on, everything that was around, the signs that I saw on the highway, you know, the route signs, all those things, was all exact. The only thing that was different this time was I could see a face, and it clicked in my brain immediately. And it was the weirdest thing because it was years separating it.
Really?
Yeah, it was really weird.
Wow, that's great. That's great. What do you make of that?
I make the thing that I can think of about it is that I could see that instance happening, but it also gave me in my head that my life is going to be unpredictable as to who I'm going to end up with. Especially, you know, NFs were kind of like on the bench sometimes. We want the romance, but it doesn't always happen with that same person
ENFPs
all the time.
are. That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's more of an ENFP thing.
That's okay.
All
but
right.
the other ones understand. They understand us, too.
I don't know that they understand.
Well, not understand, but, you know.
They could be a little better. You could do a little, you're working it a little harder, to be honest.
Well, we're trying to.
Yeah.
Just letting you know, we are trying. But that's what I make of it, is that it was predicting a situation, but almost like my brain was saying, haha, you're not going to know. Like, this last part, the detail part, is not going to be known to you until it's the right situation. So almost, too, that it was going to tell me that's how I would know that the person I was with was somebody that I dreamt about a long time ago.
Wow.
That's it kind of got a little deep on that part, but that's what I thought, was I was just like, maybe this is like a sign, because I've always been one of those people that I'm always looking for a sign somewhere that's going to tell me
NF.
certain things. Yeah.
Sure. One thing it's not really a prediction, it's sort of a weird connection, and it's kind of goofy.
Of course
you know,
it is.
It is, and nerdy, but it's actually one of my favorite dreams.
We love nerdy.
Yeah, because it was vivid. And so I have a lot of sci-fi dreams, okay, because I'm into science fiction, so I have a lot of sci-fi dreams. Like, I can't even tell you how many Star Trek dreams I've had, where I thought I was watching, like, I'm not in Star Trek, like, I'm not wearing Starfleet, but I think I'm watching a Star Trek episode of some kind, either The Next Generation or Classic Trek. And then I wake up and I was like, what episode was that? I don't remember. I was like, oh my God, that wasn't a real episode. I made it up in my head. You know, like I was like,
wow.
Yeah, I've had a bunch
ridiculous.
of those. Whole plots, all sorts of things going on.
Wow.
Yes. Now this one, so I've had sci-fi dreams. Now this particular sci-fi dream wasn't I was actually in this one. Like I was a space person in this one. Not a space person.
He secretly wants to be in.
Yeah, I do, absolutely. I make no apologies about that. So, all right, so it was great. I was in this ship that was really long and tubular, like a NASA thing. This wasn't like Star Trek, like there's no gravity, things like that. It was very sort of classic sci-fi. And in the middle was sort of this glass, if you will, bridge or command center or CIC, whatever, of the ship. Okay, and we're flying over very close to the atmosphere of Saturn. So we're underneath the ring. Like it was very vivid. You could see the ring through the windows above us.
Wow.
So we're that low to Saturn, and it was known that it was Saturn. And this is the important part. Beneath us is a giant hurricane, a hurricane like the size of the Earth, like this enormous hurricane is below us. And it's doing something to the ship. And I remember, so the ship is like breaking up or having problems. I remember two people way down the tube getting sucked out. Like I'm looking down the tube like this corridor and two people get sucked out right away.
Whoa.
That's one of my nightmares about science fiction. So I had to close a door like that always happens in science fiction.
The intense situation,
I had to close the door, and I remember looking out the window and there was like an astronaut in like an astronaut suit, but he had obviously fallen out of the ship and he was trying to like grab as he fell into like the hurricane going down. It's pretty frightening, and everybody's pushing buttons and I'm pushing buttons. Okay. Now the reason why this is weird and important is like a couple of days later, like really right away, I see on the news that NASA has captured a picture, the first picture ever of a hurricane on Saturn. I hadn't known about this. I hadn't read about this. I didn't have any exposure to this. But like there was sort of this weird synchronicity about it, sort of almost like connecting with this real sort of scientific discovery. Now, granted, the picture was probably taking, I know how NASA works. So they took it like probably 3 years ago, and then they analyzed it, they ran it through the computer, then run it through
they wouldn't
colors.
tell us if they didn't know.
Right. Or they wouldn't take it right away and just throw it on TV, you know what I mean, or the internet or whatever. So
they do their research.
Right. So this is picture that was probably taken like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But it came out right after I had this dream. Like I had this dream, and it was Saturn, a big huge hurricane on Saturn. Sure enough, there's the picture. Like 3 or 4 days later.
Wow.
And it blew my mind. All right, so that's part 1 of dreams. And stay tuned for part 2. Okay. And don't forget, more pork chops, less karate chops. Remember.